Emperor Zarketh, supreme sovereign of the Draconic Imperium, conqueror of the Andromeda Sector, had never returned from war early. In his 4,000 years of existence, he had always seen campaigns through to their absolute conclusion. But the rebellion on Kepler 442b had collapsed faster than anticipated, the insurgents surrendering the moment his flagship entered orbit. So he returned to his palace on the capital world of Drakkar Prime 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The palace was silent as he walked through its obsidian halls, his massive form still bearing the marks of battle. His guards were at their posts, his advisors presumably in their chambers. Everything seemed in order. Then he heard singing. Zarketh froze. The voice was small, fragile, and distinctly human. It came from the direction of his private quarters, the sanctum that only his most trusted servants were permitted to enter, and even then, only when he was present. The Emperor moved silently, his centuries of tactical training making his approach soundless despite his size. As he neared his chamber doors, he heard the voice more clearly. It was singing something in the human language called English, a cheerful melody about sunshine and rainbows. He pushed open the door. The scene before him defied 4 millennia of experience. His human maid, Clara, a war orphan he'd taken into service 5 years ago, was standing on a stepladder in the center of his treasure vault. But she wasn't stealing. She was dusting. His priceless artifacts from 100 conquered worlds were arranged around her in neat rows. The crown of Zalthara, which had taken him 3 years and 2 wars to obtain, gleamed with fresh polish. The sword of crimson stars, still stained with the blood of the last warrior who dared challenge him, rested in a velvet cloth, obviously mid-cleaning. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The most shocking part was what she'd done to his war trophies wall. Where there had once been a chaotic display of weapons, flags, and skulls from defeated enemies, there was now organization. Each item was labeled with a small handwritten card in neat script. Battle of Proxima, 2847 GST. Siege of the Iron Citadel, 3201 GST. The Crab Nebula Campaign, 3899 GST. Clara turned, still humming, and froze when she saw him. The duster fell from her hands. "Your Majesty." She scrambled down the ladder so fast she nearly fell. "You're back early. I thought." "What?" Zarketh said slowly, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Are you doing in my private vault?" Clara's face went pale, but she straightened her spine. "Organizing, Your Majesty. You left in such a hurry for the war, and I noticed things were getting dusty and disorganized. I thought I could help." "You thought you could help?" he repeated, incredulous. "You are aware that the last servant who entered this vault without permission was fed to the plasma eels?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Her voice was small but steady. "But respectfully, that servant was trying to steal the orb of infinite night. I was just trying to make sure you could actually find your things." Zarketh stared at her. In 4,000 years, no one, not his generals, not his advisors, not even his own clutchmates, had dared speak to him with such casual practicality. They cowered, they schemed, they flattered. But this human, this tiny creature whose entire species he could obliterate with a single fleet command, stood before him worried about dust. He looked around the vault again. Everything was immaculate. She'd even repaired the display case for his collection of enemy admirals' medals, something he'd been meaning to do for 50 years. "You organize my war trophies," he said. "Chronologically," Clara confirmed. "I found your old campaign logs in the library and cross-referenced everything. There were some items I couldn't identify, so I left those on your desk with questions." She'd read his campaign logs, his personal military history, and instead of using that information for blackmail or espionage, she'd made helpful notes. Zarketh felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Complete bewilderment. "Why?" he finally asked. Clara blinked. "Because it needed doing, Your Majesty. And because..." She hesitated, then continued. "Because when you return from war, you shouldn't have to come home to chaos. You should come home to order, to peace. That's what home is supposed to be. The Dragon Emperor, conqueror of 1,000 worlds, breaker of fleets, stood in silence. In all his wars, all his conquests, all his accumulated power, no one had ever suggested that he deserved something as simple as a peaceful home. "Clara," he said finally. "Yes, Your Majesty? From now on, you are head of the imperial household. Triple salary. And—" he paused, something almost like a smile crossing his terrible features. "Thank you." As he left her standing there in shock, Zarketh realized that perhaps humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their resilience or their stubborn determination. It was their incomprehensible ability to see a terrifying alien warlord and think, he needs someone to organize his sock drawer.